Good day, everybody, and welcome to today's Coffee and Clouds minicast, Ensuring Safe and Secure Work from Home. I'm Alan Falcon, the CEO of Cumulus Global, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day and week, especially given the times we live in, to spend 15, 20 minutes, maybe a little bit more here with us today to learn a little bit and get your questions answered. I also appreciate those of you who are watching this as a recording on demand. Thanks for joining us here this afternoon. A couple of housekeeping issues as we get into every webcast that we do. As you know, we always mute the audio, prevents the background noise. So if you have a question at any point in time, please click on the icon along the top or right-hand side of your screen to open that questions window. I'll be running through the presentation materials. We've got plenty of time for Q&A at the end. The session's being recorded. If I think it's better than the one that's previously recorded, this one will make it to the website. If not, there's already a version of this webcast up on the website, same registration page that you used to access the live session here today. This Coffee and Cloud series is part of a larger series. We're focusing on issues particularly relevant to how businesses are adapting to the COVID-19 crisis. Social distancing requirements, stay-at-home orders, and restrictions on certain types of business activities. And so today we're talking about safe and secure computing from home. We've got other in the series about really taking full advantage of what you have in your G Suite or your Microsoft Office 365 environment. As far as teamworks, particularly given that your teams are working remotely from one another. And then it's part of a broader series as well of hot topics for small, mid-sized businesses when it comes to technology. And so today, jump right into it here. I'll talk about sort of the risks and challenges of personal and home computers being used. And we're seeing this. There's certainly been, with stay-at-home orders, there was a pretty big scramble to get people able to work from home. A lot of people who are working from home now haven't done so on a regular basis in the past. And so while your sales folks and field service people might be used to working remotely, or you might have a few people working from home or remote offices, you've got folks now working from home who typically are in the office every day. And most small businesses can't afford to provide everyone with a laptop or a home computer for that work. So a lot of people are using personal and home computers to be able to perform their job and stay active within your business. And this poses certain types of risks. The big three are really that malware. Someone's now connecting, even if they're VPNing in, they are connecting securely to your network. If they have malware on their home computer, it can spread to your network. Home computers aren't isolated to a particular user per se, so other people might be using that computer and doing risky behavior. There are application issues. Lots of people have Microsoft Office installed on their desktops or their laptops at home, their personal devices. Those aren't necessarily the same versions or even the current versions of the software that you use within your organization. And the third risk is really that you're moving data outside of your company's security and privacy envelope. And that's not a physical envelope of being physically in your office. It's really being a virtual security envelope of where you have control over that data and how it's managed and how it stays private. And so the sources of these risks come from a couple of places. I already sort of mentioned multiple users, right? So you have an employee, they're working on a home computer. That same computer might be used by a spouse or children doing homework, browsing the internet, shopping, and exploring. And that opens that computer to a different type of risk than a computer in your office behind your firewall that's used particularly, primarily for business purposes. A lot of home computers are older hardware. They might not be upgraded to current operating systems that they may not have been receiving security updates. They most likely have consumer level or what's now considered generally weak malware protections and not the next gen endpoint security and other protections that we recommend and have our clients install. Applications, again, if they're running Microsoft Office, it's most likely a home version of Office that will not fully connect into your Office 365 environment or have the same features and functions as Office 2016 or Office 2019 that you're using as part of your Microsoft 365 or Office 365 subscription at work. And those feature differences can impact people's ability to work. And we don't see it just in the Office suite. We see it with things like Acrobat Reader, Adobe tools, other tools that you might use in the office where there's a consumer version that people might have at home. And finally, the other source of risk is VPN services. VPN services slow the connection time. They add additional software and configuration that's required to monitor and manage and administer. And so there's both a hard cost and a soft cost. Additionally, when someone's VPNing into your network, that computer they're on becomes part of your network. So any security vulnerabilities on that system are now security vulnerability of your network as well. Now, an ideal solution is a full MDM, also known as mobile device management. And certainly for those running in the Microsoft Office 365 world, you know that certain versions of that licensing include a whole range of mobile device management that aren't just for mobile devices like iPhones and Android phones, but for Windows and Mac laptops and desktops as well. And so while the ideal solution is a full MDM, what does that mean? It means that you have a secure and integrated operating system. So you're on Windows 10 in a version that integrates with your domain management, so you know that it's secure and that data is encrypted on the drive, etc. That you're securely connected to your company resources, that you're segregating company and personal data on that device so that if an employee leaves or something happens, you have the ability to delete company data without interfering with the personal use of that computer. And that you also want to make sure that your data is encrypted at rest on local or mapped drives, as well as in motion when it's being moved around, and that you can control access. So that even though someone may be on a computer that you're using for work and someone else is using for personal use, you want to make sure that only your employee can get into the work systems, right? This is, the big fear we have right now is, what happens if my 8-year-old accidentally deletes all of my project files, right? Those are the types of risks we're facing with shared use of home computers when they're being used for work. And so the first thing we recommend is that you put a policy in place for the use of personal computing devices. And this is a little bit different than a typical, bring your own device or BYOD device when people are bringing devices into the office or people who regularly use them as mobile devices. Here we're looking for clear expectations, not just the employee's responsibility to make sure that the use of the device fits with company policies, but that there's company responsibilities as well. So to be effective and secure and safe with home computing, the company might take the responsibility to add next-gen endpoint protection to stop malware, ransomware, and cyber thieves from attacking that machine at the company's expense. The company may take responsibility for offering business licensing of software to install on that computer so that the employee is able to work in the right version and in an integrated fashion as if they were in the office. And the company would take responsibility for helping the employee remove that software and those other features if they left the company's employer or at the end of the crisis, if they're going to move back to working in the office on a regular basis. At the same time, you want the employee to have some responsibilities for their use and agree to that. And so you really come out with mutual commitments on how this is going to work. And it's as much about doing the right things for security and data privacy and management, as well as enabling the company to manage those resources and not creating a financial or physical burden for the employees as well. So step one is definitely put a policy in place. If you don't have a policy, we've written a sample policy that you can take and edit. There's a URL on the screen, bit.ly/personal use policy. It's also attached to this webcast. If you look in the icons, you'll see a handouts icon. You can click there and you can download a PDF version as well. If you have any questions about the policy, you'll have my email address at the end. Feel free to get in touch. The second step is to provide a working platform in the house. And whether it's a personal device or you're buying and delivering company-owned devices, the computers must meet the requirements for the software and the services you want to use. Okay, so a home computer running Windows 7 with only 4 gig of RAM probably isn't going to perform very well for your employee. It probably doesn't meet the specs of what you need, even for Microsoft Office, let alone other applications. And so, if that's the case and people are using their personal computers and you're not looking to buy or lease new equipment for them, then offering to reimburse the employee to upgrade the memory in that machine, for example, is an affordable alternative that lets the employee know that you're doing everything you can so that they can be fully productive and fully effective working from home. Additionally, you want to provide access to resources. So, if you have Office 365, you're probably aware that for each user, each employee, that employee can install Office, the desktop apps, depending on your license, if you have those included, on up to 5 laptop and notebook devices. So you can certainly add their home computer or their home laptop or 2 devices in their house to that list where they're allowed to install it. So they're using company software to do company work. The other access, and this is interesting, we've talked to several hundred small businesses over the last 3 weeks, customers and non-customers alike, and about a third are having particular trouble with telephone services. And that in their rush to close their office and have people work from home, they forwarded business numbers to individual cell phones, oftentimes to people who aren't normally working remotely, so don't have remote access to the phone system. And we're seeing issues with businesses getting phone calls and not being able to forward them or direct the caller to the right party, because doing so would divulge personal home phone numbers or personal cell phone numbers, as opposed to making sure that everyone can access phone services through a unified communication strategy. The good news is you don't have to replace your phone system to fix that problem. There's some adaptation you can do, and there's even some inexpensive overlay services you can implement temporarily while people are working from home, and we're happy to help with that as well. And the third part about providing the platform is help your employees accessorize, right? Having an external monitor so they're working on a larger screen or across 2 screens can make them more productive and feel more like a normal work environment if they have multiple screens on their desk at work. Providing headsets, particularly with the noise canceling feature, it doesn't need to be the one that costs hundreds of dollars, that you buy at the airport kiosk, Bose or Sony high-end, noise canceling headphones. We're talking about good headsets designed for unified communications that have basic noise canceling, that eliminate background noise when people are speaking, and do some filtering so it makes it easier for them to hear. Giving them that type of equipment instead of having them work off the laptop mic and speakerphone produces a higher quality phone or web video conference interaction, and again reinforces that you're expecting your employees to be productive and you're giving them the tools they need to be as productive as possible in a safe and secure way. Okay, so you want me to provide the platform. Next is you need to give access, right? You want employees to connect to your business systems if they're working remotely. There's several different techniques. One is by secure networking, whether it's a virtual wide area network, a software-defined network, or a specific VPN connection. These are good because they do take that device and add it to your in-house secure network. The downside is the VPN and the secure networking protocols add delay and latency, so they slow things down. It generally requires a second level of login, and if there's an issue with the performance or the connectivity of the VPN, those issues remotely are very difficult to diagnose. So they put an additional burden on your IT support staff and even on the end user, and can lead to hours-long work disruptions if things go wrong. A second option is to provide remote desktop or virtual desktop infrastructure. This is where the user on their local computer doesn't actually work on the local computer per se. They open a browser and connect, or they open a thin client and connect. What they get then is a representation of a desktop running on a server or infrastructure, either in your office or preferably up in the cloud. That is where the actual work happens. So the processing, all the calculations, all the networking is happening within the safe and secure data center. The only thing that comes down to your local computer is what was presented on the screen and your mouse actions and your keyboard clicks going back up. And you can connect to local printers if needed and things of that nature, but remote desktop is a way to provide secure access, oftentimes at a higher performance than even a secure network or VPN connection. The third option is to offer desktop integration, and if you're running G Suite or Google Apps as it's known, or you're running Office 365 and the Microsoft 365 suites now, you've got options there. With G Suite, it's called Drive File Stream. In the Microsoft world, it's the OneDrive client. These typically are set up to sync and share. You don't want that. You want to use the option on setup that uses them as a cache. What this does is in your Explorer, whether it's on your Mac or your Windows device, your Google Drive environment or your OneDrive and SharePoint file services show up as mapped letter drives or additional drives on a Mac. You can browse them using Windows or Mac Explorer. You open up any application on your Windows or Mac desktop. You can browse them as if they're a local locally attached or a local network drive. That level of desktop integration is great, particularly if your business involves or you've got people running applications that are memory or processor intensive. So if you've got folks doing design work, doing work in the Adobe suite, doing graphics, building flyers, things of that nature, this gives them the ability to run the software locally on their machine, access the files off the cloud file services, and they're cached locally, they work locally, they're saved locally, they're automatically synced back up to the cloud. Now, in setting up a desktop integration, there's some work behind the scenes. You need to make sure that the files people are accessing are available in the OneDrive or the Google Drive environment. But those are typically straightforward projects that can move very quickly and can be fully enabled. There's some additional ways to give access to files for applications locally. Again, we're happy to talk to you about your needs and recommend solutions. Our goal is to always to first help you leverage the infrastructure you already have in place, and then only look at adding or altering it if you need to meet specific requirements. So it's not about spending money, it's about the most efficient use of resources. So once you've provided access, you want to protect the platform. And as I mentioned at the onset, there's huge risks with people working remotely in general, even more so if they happen to be working off of personal devices. And we often see, for example, that because companies often have pretty rigorous firewalls and physical protections for their network, for systems and for users who work on site most of the time, the device that someone may have taken home might not even that belongs to the company might not have all the protections they need in place, and certainly home systems generally don't. So when we talk about protecting the platform, we're talking about multiple levels to deal with different types of attacks and risks. The first one I've already mentioned is next generation endpoint protection. This is what happens when a file is opened or an action happens on the machine that may indicate that there's a virus, malware, ransomware, etc. You want a next-gen solution that uses the AI and the heuristics to analyze that behavior, and if possible, roll back the action to prevent an infection. What's nice is that there are tools in the space that are designed to run alongside other endpoint protection software, so that if you have an employee who installed the version of Norton or Symantec or Trend Micro that came with the computer when they bought it, which is very typical to do, you can add a next-gen endpoint protection like WebRoot Secure Anywhere without interfering with their applications or what they already have for endpoint protection, but bringing that level of protection up to your corporate and your company standard. The next level of protection is one that we recommend all businesses have, even when they're working on site, which is web and DNS protection. In fact, we had a customer within the last couple of days, an employee had an interaction with someone that led to their DNS being hijacked, which means nobody can access their website. They can no longer use their email service, and they're dealing with lawyers and the FBI to get it back. So we recommend DNS protection to prevent your DNS from coming under attack. DNS protection also helps you avoid denial of service and other pointed attacks that come at you. The web protection has two vectors to it. One is web filtering, which is the most important. It's really looking at what's coming down from websites and analyzing the behavior of how that works. Right now, about 20 to 25% of ransomware infections originate on a trusted website that's been hacked, where someone clicks on something, there's an autoplay video, embedded in that video is the malware. And it goes undetected, gets installed, and runs on your local machine. The third thing to do, and most computers now come out of the box set up this way, but it's good to validate that you want to encrypt your disks and files on the disk so that at rest, files are generally encrypted. It's not a foolproof protection. If someone has your identity and accesses your machine, obviously the files get unencrypted, but it does prevent certain types of attacks from being effective. The third, and particularly important, is if that computer is having company data stored on it, another thing you might provide for your employee is backup and recovery of the device. Now, you can choose to back up just the business activity or the entire computer, but knowing that if you've got someone working on a project, let's say you're an architecture firm or design firm, and you've got someone with their project files and 3 months of work on that desktop, and their hard disk craps out, or there's a power failure and files are corrupted and lost, you don't want that work lost. So having desktop level backup recovery is a useful tool. And again, here you can be somewhat selective in where you apply the solution to where the problem is likely to occur. Now, we do have companies where critical functions are being performed off-site and locally on home computers. We've seen, we've had a couple of companies right now where they moved QuickBooks to someone's home computer, and then that computer had problems, and not problems where they lost data, but problems where the computer was unavailable for a day or two, which presented, problems in the business's inability to do things like process receivables, generate payables and invoices, and do other day-to-day bookkeeping activities. So if you have people working at home, whether it's a company-owned computer or a home computer, that are a critical function that's time sensitive as far as the availability of that work, you might want to consider a PC continuity solution. And a PC continuity solution is one where not only do we provide the backup and recovery of the data, but an image of that PC is snapshotted and saved in the cloud. If something happens to that PC from any browser, that user can then log in. It's effectively a virtual desktop environment. An image of their PC is up and running for them, and they're able to continue their work just remotely off a system that's running in a cloud data center while the local issues gets fixed. Once the local issues get fixed, we move the operation back down to the local machine, which is obviously a little bit more convenient. So there's different types of protection for the platform. Endpoint protection, web and DNS protection is something everyone should do. Encryption of data is that something everyone should do. Backup recovery and PC continuity are really needs-based, and we can help with that evaluation if you're interested in exploring that in great detail. The next aspect of having a work from home plan and being safe and secure is to have an exit plan. We know at some point people will start returning to their offices and won't be working as home as much. In that case, when that happens, you have a decision to make whether or not you want to continue to allow each individual to work from home in the same level or same level of complexity or access that they have now. If not, you should have an exit plan up front so you understand how you will rescind access to your system, so that is secure from outside intruders and from home use that's not authorized. If you've installed software or licenses that belong to the company, you want to remove and reclaim those licenses. If you're providing backup and recovery and it's only for the work, and you don't see providing backup recovery of home computers as a benefit your organization wants to offer its employees, you want to be prepared to remove that capability, and also know what you will leave behind. So we talked to one company that basically told half a dozen users to add memory to their existing home computers. Expense it to the company reimbursed it. The company clearly knows that when those employees return to the office, they're not going to have those employees take the memory out of their computers and bring it to the office. There's no point, there's no purpose served by that. That memory can't be reused in the company's computers. So they're just effectively offering to the company. Similarly, a lot of businesses now have started reimbursing employees who choose to upgrade their home internet speed so that they're more productive, particularly since you might have multiple adults working from home as well as multiple children online doing schoolwork for some or all of the day as well. And so know that if you're willing to do that and an employee upgrades their home internet service, either committing to a 1-year or a 2-year contract, can be done month to month. Whatever that commitment is that you're making to support them, make sure it's clear up front so that at the end of this, they don't feel like they're stuck with the bill or stuck with a service that they don't need. So I've covered a lot of ground here in the last 20 minutes or so. So I do want to open it up for questions. A couple of things, if you have questions, you're not ready to ask them now or they come to you later, you can contact us, info@cumulusglobal.com. Our toll-free number's on the screen, or you can reach out to me directly, afalcon@cumulusglobal.com. I don't have an assistant, so those come to my inbox, I answer them. My direct line is there as well, but I'll be honest with you, I answer email a lot more effectively and efficiently and quickly than I do voice messages, so it's best to send me an email. Also, we have a whole range of COVID-19 resources, not just about technology, but about business, finance, operating procedures, human resources. We're collecting that information. On our homepage, we have an index of blog posts. We actually have more blog posts than we have on the homepage listed in the index just for space considerations. So take a look at that, scroll back through time into April. You'll see a wide range of topics discussed and solutions offered and resources, including financial resources for small businesses other than the popular Paycheck Protection Program. There's a couple of other programs out there that have gotten much less press coverage, but nonetheless might be a valuable resource for you as a business or even a nonprofit. We also, on our news events page, we're collating web events, not only our own events, but events from trusted resources and sources on a variety of topics related to business operations and adapting to the current normal. So I want to thank folks for joining us. For those watching the recording, this is when we say goodbye and we end the recording part. For those live, stay on the line. I'm here for the Q&A session. We just don't generally include those in the recording. So for those watching the recording, thank you for taking the time to view. We've recorded, we've captured that you've watched the recording. So if you selected a Dunkin' or Starbucks card, we'll get that out to you in the mail in the next day or so as a thank you gift for taking the time to watch the recording. So thank you and have a great day.